The town of Montreux, Switzerland has long had a deep history within music. Queen recorded at least 6 records in Montreux, including their final album, Made in Heaven, which was released after Freddie's death, and they also owned Mountain Studios for a number of decades, from 1979 until I believe 2013. Other legendary acts have also done records at Mountain Studios, including AC/DC with Fly on the Wall, the Rolling Stones' Black and Blue, as well as a number of Bowie albums. Montreux is also home to one of the world's biggest music festivals, the Montreux Jazz Festival. The festival began in 1967 and over the years has included almost everyone that you can think of, from Led Zeppelin to Pink Floyd, Deep Purple, of course, to B.B. King, Stevie Ray Vaughan, and Joe Satriani. I also have a DVD of Alice Cooper performing at the festival in 2005, and it's an absolutely incredible performance. The first editions of the festival were held at the Montreux Casino, which brings us to why we're here, as that casino is responsible for one of rock's most timeless songs. So today we're going to take a look at the fire that inspired Deep Purple's classic rock staple, Smoke on the Water. In very early of December 1971, Deep Purple, along with their most successful Mark II lineup, with Ian Gillan on vocals, Ritchie Blackmore on guitar, Ian Pace drumming, keyboardist John Lord, and Roger Glover on bass, arrived in Montreux to record the follow-up to that year's Fireball album and what would go on to be the band's most successful release, Machine Head. The band had rented the Rolling Stones' mobile studio and had made plans to record at the Montreux Casino, as the casino closed each winter for annual renovations, allowing a place to record. Quick sidebar, a number of world-famous albums were recorded, in full or in part, inside the Rolling Stones' mobile studio, including their own albums, Sticky Fingers and Exile on Main Street, as well as Led Zeppelin 3 and 4, so quite a history inside that truck, which now resides at the National Music Center in Calgary. On December 4th of 1971, the final concert of the season was taking place with Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention, though by that time they had mostly dropped the of invention from their name and were mostly going by simply Frank Zappa and the Mothers. At some point during the show, a member of the audience fired a flare gun towards the ceiling of the casino, as referenced in the lyric, "Some Stupid with a Flare Gun." During keyboardist Don Preston's synth solo on the song King Kong, the venue caught fire, destroying the entire casino complex, as well as all of Zappa and the Mothers' gear. Thankfully, though, there were no major injuries. Claude Nobbs, the founder and director of the Montreux Jazz Festival, who has since passed away, was present at the show and helped a number of people escape the venue. He is referenced in lyrics as Funky Claude. Deep Purple bassist Roger Glover, who is credited with conceiving the title Smoke on the Water after a dream he had had a few days after the incident, recalled the fire, saying, quote, "It was probably the biggest fire I had ever seen up to that point and probably ever seen in my life. It was a huge building. I remember there was very little panic getting out because it didn't seem like much of a fire at first. But when it caught, it went up like a fireworks display." The suspect was a Czechoslovak refugee whose name I'm not even going to begin to try and pronounce, but he unfortunately was never apprehended, as he ended up fleeing Switzerland shortly thereafter. Aside from the tragedy, Deep Purple were obviously left with no place to record, and they were renting the very costly Rolling Stones mobile studio, so they had to scramble to find a new place to record Machine Head. Claude Nobbs yet again became the hero of the day when he suggested the Pavilion, a local theater also located in Montreux. However, the band was only able to lay down tracks for one song, which I'll get to in a moment, before local police shut it down due to noise complaints from the neighbors of the venue. About a week or so later, the band was able to rent the Grand Hotel, which was luckily closed for the winter. Upon loading in, they converted the hotel into a sort of makeshift studio with some red lights for atmosphere and mattresses for soundproofing. With the way that they had done the conversions, the walk from the hotel back to the mobile studio was supposedly so long and dramatic, having to move over so many things, that allegedly they stopped listening to the demos of the record and deemed things as, quote, good enough so that they didn't have to make the trek back and forth. A total of 6 songs were recorded at the Grand Hotel, but upon completion of the recordings, they supposedly felt that it was more of like an EP and not enough to justify a full-blown record, and that they needed one more song, so they went back to what was recorded at the Pavilion prior to the hotel, Smoke on the Water. Although there was some debate over the song's title, as some of the band felt that it was quote-unquote too druggy, obviously the name stuck, and here we are today. While Smoke on the Water was obviously included on Machine Head, which released in 1972, it wasn't released as a single until 1973, after Never Before and Highway Star were released as the first two singles from the record. It wasn't until then that the record would reach top 10 and become the commercial success that it's now known for. The song, of course, has cemented its place in music history with what is probably the most recognizable riff in all of rock and roll. Honestly, I feel like more people know the riff than know the full song, but it's also notable for a couple of other things outside of the fire as well. Singer Ian Gillan eventually left Deep Purple and joined Black Sabbath in 1983, replacing Ronnie James Dio and recording the album Born Again. During his brief stint in Sabbath, they would frequently play Smoke on the Water as an encore, which is one of the only covers Sabbath has ever performed live. On May 1st, 2009, at the Thank You Jimmy Festival in Poland, then guitarist Steve Morse, along with 6,346 other guitarists, set a Guinness World Record playing Smoke on the Water together simultaneously. Steve Morse unfortunately left the band last year to take care of his wife, who is battling cancer, and has been replaced by Simon McBride, who has a history playing with Ian Gillan and current keyboardist Don Airey. All right, though, I gotta run. My fiance is waiting for me to fire off my flare gun, so I gotta go. But thanks so much for watching. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you next time.